17th of April, 12:41 p.m. The Old Bailey Defendant's Antechamber. Hello, chasers and chapsticks. My name is TB Skyen, and welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney, where we've reached part 3 of this extremely long trial, and we finally managed to draw the actual killer out of hiding. At least the character design and his general demeanor and the way that he was introduced and the way that the story frames him very much suggests that the person we're about to meet has been the true villain all along. So let's find out how that goes. Gina, how are you holding up? I'm starting to feel quite warmly towards her frequent cold shoulders now.
Ginny! Are you alright? Why aren't you saying anything?
What's the point, eh?
Why get all this trouble and fight so hard for the likes of me? What? Well, you saw it, that picture.
What picture?
You mean this? The photograph taken by Hurley's red-handed recorder. Well, I didn't think it would have captured a scene like this, that's for sure.
It's hopeless. Anyone sees that's going to think I did it, ain't they? Well, I won't pretend it wasn't a bit of a shock when the prosecution first presented it to the court. Surely you've got to have your doubts about me now. You still can't think I'm innocent. Of course I can.
Ginny, why don't you talk to us? Tell us what really happened that night. Bruno's cleverly managed to piece together a lot of new information, but still, we'd really like to hear it from you. Right then.
It was after we ate the dinner together at your place, right, Iris? Then we'd all had chat up in your office, didn't we? Yeah, I remember. After that, I just couldn't get to sleep. So I stepped out and went down straight to the 2-on-1. A 2-to-1 to Winnieback's place. I had to know if Iris' story was there or not. The Hound of the Baskervilles. I don't know what it's about or nothing. But if you ask me, it's something that Sholmes don't like. Something we don't want people reading. So that's why I lied to Iris about sticking in the log with Windybank for safekeeping. At least that's what I thought at the time. So you broke into Windybank's? I just had to know if it was there or not. I mean, I had no idea at all it was going to kick off, did I? I struck the lock, snuck inside. It was dark as you like in there. So I gave the oil lamp on the counter a bit of wick. And that's when... What do you think you're doing? And then screaming. I nearly died, I did. Next thing I knew... I grabbed the gun off the counter and was waving it in the air like, I don't know what. You're the girl who was in here this afternoon. I didn't think pickpockets went in for armed robbery. The manuscript. Have you got her there? The Sholmes leave a papers with you. A story. I beg your pardon. The Hound is something or other. If you see it, I want to see it. I'm sorry, young lady, but I'd sooner die than relinquish an article belonging to one of my customers. I don't want it. What would I do with it anyway? I just want to see if he's here, that's all. Oh, you want to see it, do you? I want to know if Sholmes really pawned it here or not. Please, just let me see it and I'll go. Oh, very well then. But for pity's sake, stop waving my gun around, would you? So the alcove unlocked the storeroom door, and we both went inside. And it was there, alright. The manuscript. Sholmes weren't lying after all.
You really did all that just to check for me, Ginny?
Anyway, then there was a bit of a kick-up at the main bit of the shop. The Skulkin brothers arriving on the scene, yes.
What was that noise? Someone's breaking in. Dear me, is there some burglars convention here tonight that I don't know about? I think I forgot to shut the door behind me. Sorry. I'd better go and take care of it. Could I possibly have my gun back? Oh, well, I'll come with you. Now don't be foolish, young girl. You must stay right here. Don't leave this room under any circumstances. And with that, he took my gun out my ends and walked back out in the shop. I hung back in the storeroom, like he said, straining my ears in the dark to hear what was going on. It sounded like they got into a bit of a scrap. I started to think I should help, see? So I was just about to go out the storeroom with myself when... a couple of shots go off. 2, I think. Almost at the same time. And then there was, right at my feet, lying face down on the floor. I was right next to the storeroom door, so I slammed it and I locked it quick as you like. Because you thought whoever had shot Mr. Winterbank might come for you? Yeah, so I went to grab the old cove's gun. I figured I'd put up a fight at least. But when I got a better look at him, I knew. Winterbank was a goner.
That's a hell of a thing to see in front of you.
Got funny in my head or something. Kind of dizzy. And after that, I don't remember nothing.
That must be when you passed out, Gina.
If I had done what I'd done, old Cole might still be alive.
Did you tell the police everything you just told us?
Of course I did, but they didn't believe a word of it, did they? All they said was, if I kept telling lies, I'd make things even worse for me.
Yeah, cops are not sympathetic to poor people. Very sympathetic to the rich and to property owners, but poor people, not so much.
I'll be alright, Ginny. Don't worry. Just stay strong a little longer. Runa is about to put the real culprit through the mill. That coat, what was in there this afternoon? That egg of Benedict. Still remember how he looked at me, like I was nothing. He was there that night.
We don't know his real name yet, but I'm convinced that he's involved somehow. Anyway, thank you for telling us what happened, Gina. I appreciate your honesty.
You what? You can leave it all in Runa's capable hands now, Ginny. Mr. Naruto?
Yes?
How come you trust me? I don't get it. I mean, have you forgotten what happened to you before? Come on, it was only 2 months ago. Me and McGilded, we told you a whole pack of lies. And you got the box right off him, even though he was a killer.
No, I could never forget that.
Oh.
I did what I thought was best at the time. But the pain of that error of judgment doesn't get any easier to bear. Still, don't forget that I also made you a promise. I told you that I'd be on your side to the bitter end, no matter what.
But what if I'm lying? You could be working to get off the killer for hook for, you know?
I was once in your position, Gina. I was the accused in a trial.
You were?
Before I left Japan, I was accused of murder. And strange as it might sound, the circumstances of the crime were pretty damning. I was sure that nobody would believe it wasn't me who'd done it.
Oh, Runa.
But there was one person who stood up for me, who believed in me and was prepared to defend me. My best friend. Reinosuke, no one believes in you more than I do. Leave this to me. All you need to do is put your faith in me, and I'll do the rest. I was so happy I cried. But even then, somewhere inside me, I couldn't help thinking, surely he doesn't really believe in me. Not completely. But I was wrong. As soon as my trial began, it was obvious that he had an absolute, unwavering belief in me. And in turn, I developed an absolute, unwavering belief in him. They're boyfriends. Just saying. Well, they never got to be boyfriends, but they would have been if he had survived. Since then, I came to realize if you want someone to believe in you, you have to believe in the other person first.
What are you saying?
I promise you, Gina, that no matter what happens, I'll keep believing in you. So you don't need to worry. I won't let you down.
You know I'm a diver and a no-good liar.
You're not like McGilded. I know that. For one thing, you're not rich. And that does help. Like, that speaks in favor of your character.
Aye? That's right. You're our friend, Jeannie.
Oris, we know you better than you think. And we've come to the conclusion that you're someone we can trust.
Yes.
That's really all we need to know.
Exactly. Oh, Mr. Narrowhead, are you...
Defendant Gina Lestraw, your legal representative. Court proceedings are about to resume. Please head into the courtroom immediately.
Yes, of course. Thank you. I'd been both a defendant and a defending lawyer in my time, so I knew only too well just how hard it was to put all your faith in another. And I also knew just how hard it was to bear the burden of someone putting all their faith in you. This is it at last. The final chapter, the final battle. Wish me luck, Susato-san. And I hope you're watching over me too, partner. Let's get the fucker. 17th April, 1:41 p.m., the Old Bailey courtroom. I hereby call this court to order as we resume the trial of Miss Gina Lestrade. Lord Van Six, have you successfully subpoenaed the witness? The subpoena was delivered to the communications station where the man works immediately, my lord. However, the heavy rain has delayed the arrival of his carriage, it would seem. I see it. Then let us turn our attention to Inspector Gregson's proceedings of the case, heard by the court this morning. The glaring omission of the third Polidini report is a serious blunder, Inspector.
Yeah, I can only apologize, my lord.
And although the defense's chemical analysis of the blood at the scene makes for a compelling argument, I cannot permit such untried methods to be used as evidence in my courtroom.
It's a big mistake to cross Hurley and me. A very big mistake.
My lord, the subpoenaed witness has just arrived in the building.
Thank you, officer. Show him to the stand without delay. Mr. Eckert Benedict. I didn't expect it to be crossing paths with him again so soon. And certainly not like this. Thank you for complying with the court's subpoena at such short notice, sir. But of course, my lord, as an upstanding member of London society, it is my pleasure to oblige. Now, kindly state your name and occupation for the record. Ashley Graydon, Communications Officer.
Mr. Creighton and I both work at London Central Communication Station.
Now, perhaps someone would kindly explain what all this is about. You were apprised of the situation by the court officer on your way here, I presume. Yes, I was. Something to do with a murder that took place at the pawnbrokers on Baker Street.
And some nonsense about me having been there on the night in question.
That is the accusation indeed.
This really is beyond a joke, you know.
Very well, without further delay, the court will hear your testimony now, Mr. Graydon. You'll respond to the accusation made against you under oath.
Gladly, my lord, gladly. Naturally, I have occasion to make use of pawnbroking services from time to time. But are you seriously suggesting I colluded with these thugs to break into the place on the night of the murder? I have no intention of admitting to such an outrageous accusation, even if certain parties here present claim that my blood was found at the scene. Some scaramouche detective's homebrewed tincture can hardly be taken as serious evidence.
So, you deny the accusations completely, do you?
I must say, I'm dismayed. For the highest court in the land to be swayed by this self-professed detective's toy.
It was the will of the jury, and our great British justice system demands that the jury's will is upheld.
Then it would seem we have the misfortune of a most inept assembly of jurors today.
By golly.
How long am I expected to be detained here?
If, following the defense's cross-examination, your involvement in this matter has not been established, you'll be free to leave immediately.
Good. Then I shall be away in time for an afternoon tea. Some small consolation, at least.
Let us not hold up Mr. Graydon any longer than necessary, counsel. Proceed with the cross-examination.
So, we meet again, Mr. Eggert Benedict. Or is it Mr. Graydon? My apologies, you are?
Ryunosuke Naruhodo, defense lawyer.
We have met. If you say so, Ashley Graydon, enchanté. So? I trust we can conclude this quickly.
But I'm not holding your flashing hat while we do. God, his hair looks stupid.
Anyway,
we pressed the things. Yeah, we even met in the very pawnbrokery where the crime took place on the afternoon of the day in question. Though, of course, you introduced yourself by a different name at the time.
It was Mr. Eggert Benedict, I believe. Tell me, what made you...
The witness is here to testify about the events that took place that night. He is under no obligation to answer such unrelated questions.
You can't be serious. Thank you, because I certainly do not feel inclined to answer such inappropriate question.
So, he's going to be evasive, is he? In an effort not to give anything away. This could be tricky. Have you seen these two men before?
This pair? No, I don't associate with criminals.
Said by a man who introduced himself as Eggert Benedict.
I'd like to know who I have to thank for this. Who made the outlandish accusation against me?
He's turning more into Lord Frieza every second.
Oh, I don't get angry. I have people who do that for me.
The young lawyer there in the black.
This is a farce. Whose idea was it to permit an outsider to work in a British court anyway? Well, needless to say, I have no intention of admitting to such an outrageous accusation.
We'll see. Where were you at around 1 in the morning on the night in question, sir?
Earth is past the hour when I would normally retire. Certainly. I was not in the company of these rapscallions.
You're able to prove that? Listen carefully, my learned Nipponese friend, for you appear to be under a gross misapprehension at this point.
What do you mean?
The witness maintains he was not at the scene of the crime. He has no obligation to prove his absence. If your accusation is that the witness was present at the scene, the obligation lies with you to prove your assertion. You will fulfill that obligation before putting any more unreasonable questions to the witness.
Silent victory wiggle. Thanks. Blood was found at the scene of the crime. There's no question of that. Mr. Sholmes' chemical analysis has positively identified the substance as such. But I'm not the only human to have blood running through my veins, am I? How can you be sure that the blood is mine? It could equally be the blood of one of these two miscreants. Every individual's blood has a slightly different composition, it seems. Mr. Sholmes' chemical is able to differentiate different blood samples by... Spare me the science lesson! Who is the Sholmes character, anyway? Oh, I assumed all Londoners would know the name. He's a renowned detective.
So, even you are unable to bring yourself to say great detective.
A great detective, you say? Now we're in the realm of fairy tales, are we?
Oh, hello.
Excuse me.
Do you have something to say about that, Mr. Skulkin?
Hey, what, mate?
No, the Mr. Skulkin next to you.
Right, I've had up to here with this. How many times have I got to tell you?
Yes, I know, you're not big bruv Skulky. Mr. Nash Skulkin. Hey, cool blimey, Governor. You what? Is it not the case that when Mr. Graydon just spoke, a thought went through your mind? Would you care to share that thought with the court? Hey, my thoughts? I didn't have none of them. Must have been him.
You what?
Mr. Nash Skulkin, answer the question, please. What went through your mind when Mr. Graydon just spoke? Nothing, honest, Gov, nothing. I was just thinking... If he waves his arm around like that much more, it'll open up the wound again, that's all.
It'll open up the wound again. Will it?
What wound? Well, it took a bullet, of course. It was only 2 days ago. It ain't gonna be healed up yet. So I was, so I was worrying for him, and, spells. Mr. Graydon, did you hear that? What? Your comrade is worried about you, it seems. On account of your injured arm. My lord. Yes, Mr. Graydon? I have no idea what these two wretches are talking about. Certainly, I shouldn't be expected to answer anything in relation to their mindless insinuations. We know that someone other than the victim was hit by a bullet at the scene of the crime 2 nights ago. And from the height of the bullet hole in the wall, that person was likely hit in the upper arm, or thereabouts. Perhaps you'd allow a court official to examine your arm, sir? The left arm that you're currently clasping with your right hand as if in pain. No, I refuse. You've shown no evidence whatsoever that links me to these common thieves. Accordingly, I am not obliged to permit any such invasion of my privacy. He's not wrong. As I've already said, I am completely uninvolved in all this. I never had anything to do with the pawnbrokery where this fellow was killed whatsoever. I take offense at the insinuation that I was in any way involved. You claim to have nothing whatsoever to do with Mr. Windybagg's pawnbrokery? My lord, the defense would like that last statement to be added to Mr. Graydon's formal testimony. Very well, counsel. Continue with your testimony, Mr. Graydon.
Whoopsie doopsie. Did we do a little lie?
The bottom line is, I've never had anything to do with the pawnbroking establishment where the man was killed.
Did we do a little lie?
Should I just press that?
Hold it!
Never had anything to do with it. You forget I was there, Mr. Graydon, on the very afternoon of the incident.
Obviously, I'm not a complete stranger to the pawnbrokers. I'm currently on the lookout for an armchair to furnish my study.
Objection!
No, you were there to redeem an article.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, he was there too, moron.
Excuse me!
Do you have something to add, Inspector?
Hey, come again, sunshine.
You were there too, in fact, weren't you, Inspector? That afternoon?
Well, yes, I do remember meeting yourself and the pawnbrokers that afternoon. Yeah, your young Japanese assistant and the accused were all present as I recall.
And at that time, this witness, Mr. Graydon, was trying to acquire a particular article.
Oh, well, no, I'm afraid I don't remember too clearly.
What? But you must!
I'm not getting along and pretend to remember something I don't.
What's going on here?
He actually showed us a picture before, didn't he? You know, from the cameras that Hurley installed in the window banks.
Yes, of course. It did, and that gentleman pictured bears a striking resemblance to the witness, I must say. More than striking, I think. Exactly, which proves that Mr. Graydon was in the shop on the afternoon in question.
At no point have I denied that fact. I merely entered the shop to peruse the articles on the sale and have a word with the broker. Nothing more.
This makes no sense. I understand why Mr. Graydon might be trying to cover his tracks. But why would Gregson be trying to avoid giving testimony about what happened? Yeah, something's up. That's all he's gonna say on the matter, is it?
What do you think, Bruno?
I think he has no intention of telling us anything. He's well aware that the less he says, the less chance he has of giving himself away.
The complete opposite of Hurley, then. He seems to think the more he says, the better.
Well, at least I managed to prise a little more information from these witnesses' lips. All thanks to the Skulkin brothers.
Yes, they were the key to it after all.
So he says he had nothing to do with Binda Banks. Well, we know that's not true.
Perhaps now would be a good time to have a proper look through the court record.
Good idea. You never know what tiny scrap of information could become a valuable weapon. Right, so his name is going to be recorded there somewhere, is it? Let's see. I guess we just do the music disc?
Objection!
Okay, cool. Have you ever seen this disc before, Mr. Graydon?
Why? Is it supposed to mean anything?
This disc was, until the day of the murder, in pawn at Mr. Windibank's shop. It was redeemed by the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade, that afternoon. However, somebody mysteriously appeared to try and take it from her. And that somebody was you, of course. Wasn't it, Mr. Graydon?
As I have reiterated numerous times now, you are mistaken. That was not me. I've never seen that disc before in my life.
It may have escaped your notice, but there's a small smear of blood on the disc.
Ah, yes, resulting from the abrasion of the thumb, perhaps.
That's right. The surface of the disc is covered in hundreds of tiny metal bumps. In the skirmish to acquire the disc, the thumb of the person who tried to take it suffered from minor lacerations. So, while the disc bears the remnants of that skirmish in the form of this smear of blood, the thumb of the person in question must bear the remnants also, in the form of a scratch.
Good gracious, indeed it must.
Mr. Graydon, you refused to allow a court officer to examine your arm before. Are you now going to refuse to allow us to examine your thumb? Because I have no doubt that it bears a small scratch consistent with a smear of blood on this disc.
Well, well. It would seem I underestimated you.
What is the meaning of this? So you admit it now. You admit you have a scratch on your thumb from when you attempted to take back the disc from the defendant?
Order! Order! Well, Mr. Graydon? It would appear that there has been something of a misunderstanding here. I did not attempt to take the disc, as you put it. No, quite the reverse.
What are you trying to say?
It really is quite simple, you see. The disc was mine from the outset. Is there some crime in taking an item that you own out of pawn?
What? It would seem, Mr. Graydon, that in this piece of evidence, my learned friend has established a link between yourself and the incident. Accordingly, you will tell the court everything you know about this disc now.
As you wish. Though I'm quite sure it has nothing to do whatsoever with the pawnbroker's murder.
Oh, indeed.
There's a note on the disc saying from McGilded, but the item belongs to me. The redemption ticket was stolen from me by the accused, that filthy gutterling, on the day in question. I proceeded at once to the shop in order to explain my situation and redeem my article. In the end, of course, the disc was taken by the police. In other words, I had absolutely no reason to break into the shop later that same night.
Didn't you?
Huh. Did I hear you correctly, sir? McGilded, you say? The famous London philanthropist? Who perished in this very courtroom 2 months ago after being acquitted of a distinctly messy murder? Yes, my lord. The one and the same. Good lord! Mr. Graydon! Are you saying that Mr. McGilded and yourself were acquainted? Yes, that's correct. Order! Well, I certainly didn't expect to hear that name uttered in my courtroom again.
According to what Gina told us, this disc was placed in pawn on that fateful night 2 months ago. McGilded himself gave instructions to deposit it at Windibank's.
It's funny that Mr. Graydon here is claiming the disc belongs to him then, isn't it?
In all likelihood, he's lying. So he appeared that afternoon at Windibank's in order to get his hands on McGilded's disc for some reason.
Counsel, you will commence your cross-examination, please.
Let's press it. Would you care to explain how this belongs to you?
As you will observe, a communications officer such as myself commands a fine salary.
You are certainly exquisitely dressed, sir.
So, you see, I have little need to make use of the services provided by the pawnbroker trade. However, I did once find myself in difficulties having misplaced my purse whilst on an errand, which is why I pawned my fine black overcoat to the broker in question.
You claim that it was your overcoat?
Obviously, and in my haste I clean forgot that the music box disc was in its pocket.
And yet, there is a note on it that reads, for McGilded.
I'm a collector of rare and unusual music box discs. I first met McGilded at a gentleman's club in the city I was interested to discover, but he shared my penchant in that area.
So, the disc in question?
It's a pre-production sample. I promised to let McGilded hear it.
But then you forgot that it was in the pocket of the overcoat you were forced to pawn.
Yes, exactly. Gina didn't mention any of that in her testimony 2 months ago, did she?
No, because McGilded had threatened her to keep her mouth shut. Which means that if we dig too deeply here, it's gonna expose Gina's perjury.
Oh dear, this is complicated, isn't it?
Let's leave it alone for the time being. So you're saying that Miss Lestrade lifted the ticket from your pocket or bag?
That's right, despite being mindful of danger when walking in the insalubrious areas her kind frequent.
Objection!
Miss Lestrade did no such thing.
Well, of course you would take that stance, but the girl is a regular offender.
You came to the pawnbrokery that day prepared with all the information you needed to identify the defendant. You were looking for her. That's what brought you to Windibanks. To get your hands on Mr. McGilded's disc.
Objection!
My learned friend's a veritable font of nonsense. Nonsense?
I concur with the prosecution. Counsel, you will refrain from conjecturing in this way. Is that clear?
Yes, my lord.
Then I will continue with my testimony for what possible use it can be.
Hold it!
Had you ever been to Windibanks before?
Only once, for the purposes of pawning something. But like many, I enjoy browsing in such establishments.
So, when you noticed that the pickpocket had taken your ticket, you chased after her. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. I didn't notice at first, of course, such is the art of the pick purse. But when I did, I headed to the pawnbrokery at once in order to reclaim my coat before the thief could. I was merely trying to recover what was rightfully mine in the first place.
He can say what he likes because he knows we have no evidence to contradict him on this. In the end, of course, the disc was taken by the police. Let's press that one. Yeah, it was taken by Inspector Gregson here, wasn't it?
That's right. It was the very man. Apparently, the police are collecting anything that has a connection to Mr. McGilded as evidence.
Excuse me!
Could you elucidate? Is something wrong, Inspector?
Yeah, well, what do you mean?
That last remark Mr. Grayton made in his testimony seemed to trouble you in some way.
Hey, no, didn't. Just nothing. Leave it alone.
Let me ask you this, Inspector. Why is Scotland Yard gathering McGilded's possessions?
Well, I can't do something like that, sunshine.
What is it, Inspector? Investigative secrets.
Yep, exactly. You should know all about that.
Magnus McGilded, who died so unexpectedly after his trial 2 months ago. A man renowned throughout the capital for his great contributions to public life. Yet, he had a dark side too.
Where you going with this, Sven6?
I suppose the police are dealing with the aftermath of his nefarious activities, are they?
It's enough. Coppers like me have duties to carry out that we're not at liberty to talk about. That's all you need to know.
Oh, yeah, no, like... Yeah, police are allowed to do whatever the fuck they want in secret. With no public oversight. Sure, why not? Duties conferred by Lord Strongheart, I presume. The Lord Chief Justice appears to have great faith in you, Inspector.
The bottom line is, if you want to get more out of me, you're gonna need Lord Strongheart's paw print first.
What's all this about? It's like there's something going on between Gregson and Lord Van Zeeks here.
Well, it will appear that the inspector has revealed all that he is at liberty to reveal. Mr. Creighton, let us return to your testimony. Gladly, my lord.
Hold it!
But perhaps you'd seen something of value among the forfeited items?
No, not at all.
Oh. A valuer was brought in by the police to assess everything in the shop. Without exception, every article on the shelves was common or garden bric-a-brac. In that case, it's clear that you broke into the shop later that day in order to recover Mr. McGilded's disc.
Have you not been listening, man? Even if I had wanted to recover the disc, you may recall that it had been seized by the police that afternoon. It was no more in the shop than I. As I keep saying, I simply had no reason to break in.
So there was nothing of McGilded's left in the shop that night? Nothing that this man might have been after. I wonder if that's really true.
Bruno, if you have some evidence, then let him have it. I'm dying to see that irritatingly assured expression of his crumble.
McGilded slipped the disc into his coat pocket and had it deposited at Windybanks. Then, when he realized he was going to be arrested on suspicion of the omnibus murder, he threatened Gina and forced her to take the redemption ticket.
There's no doubt about it. That witness is lying through his perfectly white teeth.
The police were obviously after anything left behind by McGilded as well. That's why Inspector Gregson ended up taking the disc into custody that day.
But Grexy is being very strange about all this.
There must be a reason for that, I'm sure. I just don't know what it is. For now, I need to focus on exposing the fact that Mr. Graydon is lying in his testimony.
Yeah.
This bit. Okay, what do we have? Mr. Windybank appears to have used the back of this photograph to writing out a redemption ticket, but... I mean, we can't just present the disc again. That makes no sense, because that's been taken away by the cops. Which means the only thing that was left... were these pawnbrokers' tickets. I guess the one... with blood on it?
Objection!
Nope, not that one. The one without blood on it?
Objection!
Oh, okay. This disc was deposited at Windybanks on Magnus McGilded's instructions. You knew that, and you went there with the intention of obtaining it for yourself.
Objection!
Conjecture again. And in any case, the disc was taken into custody by the police that afternoon. The witness had no reason to visit the pawnbrokery again that night.
Objection!
Sorry, my learned friend, but that's not true.
What?
Mr. McGilded had another article in pawn at Windybanks, as this second pawnbroker's ticket proves.
Ah,
There were two articles belonging to Mr. McGilded in that Windybanks pawnbrokery. And the reason you broke into the shop that night was to recover the second one. Together with your two accomplices, the Skulkin brothers.
This is the second ticket, is it?
What had the man deposited?
The article description reads, one small box. A rather vague description, it seems to me.
Are you suggesting I broke into the pawnbroker with these clowns in order to steal some trinket box?
I believe there are adequate grounds to suspect that you did.
This is absurd. Why on earth would I do such a thing? Once the article had been forfeited, I could simply walk into the shop and purchase it. There would be absolutely no need for me to resort to theft.
That's a good point. Indeed. The witness makes a solid argument.
So, that means for some other reason. This Graydon fellow needed the small box that very night, does it?
Objection!
It is time to put an end to this nonsense, my lord.
Could you be a little less cryptic, Lord Ben 6?
I do hate to ruin my learned friend's argument, but the truth is quite incontrovertible. On the night in question, no small box was taken from Winterbank's pawnbrokery. And rest assured, the prosecution can prove it.
What? Good gracious.
Inspector, show the photographic prints to the cart, if you please.
Yes, sir.
What prints?
These prints were taken from one of the detective security cameras.
Hurley's red-handed recorders again.
As previously explained using this plan of the shop layout, the victim's establishment was furnished with automatic cameras in two locations. One was set to capture the counter where Mr. Winterbank received his customers. And the other was set to capture the shelves on which the articles were placed for sale once forfeited.
According to information on this ticket, Mr. McGilded's small box had been forfeited already. 2 days before the incident, at 9 PM on 13th April to be precise. Which means it would have been out on the shelves and the forfeited items in the shop front. Now, what I have here is a print taken by one of the cameras about 2 hours before the incident. That's at 11 PM on 15th April.
The victim certainly had a very full shop, it would appear.
And then here we have another print. This one was taken about 2 hours after the incident.
I see. So we have two pictures to compare. Okay. I must say, placing them side by side leaves me cold.
This is another one of those fucking 3D things, isn't it? I can't do that. Hang on. Wait a minute. Let me just go cross-eyed. Can't focus. Okay, yeah, it's the goblet. It's the little thing over on the right. I see it. Okay. Ow, that sucked. I hate doing that.
Yeah, man, that's starting to make my head ache.
Same.
Obviously, at Scotland Yard, we consider theft as one possible motive in this case. We explored the possibility of something taken in addition to the victim's life.
So, you may have already compared those two prints thoroughly, Inspector?
Yes, sir. We counted every single item in each of these two photographic prints. The honest conclusion is that exactly the same number are present in both.
In other words, nothing was taken from the pawnbrokery on the night in question. And my learned friend's assertion is nothing more than a hopeful fantasy. I don't believe it. If I could have just shown that he'd stolen McGilded's pawn box. I might have been able to break him down at last.
You know what, Bruno? I've been thinking. I wonder if these two photographs really are exactly the same. What?
So, counsel, in the light of the evidence put forward by the prosecution, what is your position? It seems that in fact on the night in question, nothing was stolen from the victim's establishment. Do you accept the prosecution's assertion?
I don't know. Could there be some hidden Yes, there is a discrepancy. Okay. Use a piece of evidence, I guess? Because I think this is where the stereoscope needs to be used. Before I give my answer, my lord, I'd like to try something if I may.
Try something? What do you mean, counsel?
I'll need to use a certain piece of evidence from the court record to identify the discrepancy.
I'm not entirely sure I follow. Which piece of evidence?
Yeah.
Take that!
I'd like you to use this device, my lord, to view the two prints stereoscopically.
Oh! Yeah, you've caught the bug at last. You can't resist it, can you? You've got the cross-eyed compulsion.
Oh, you're number 3. What a surprise.
Come on, Rudo. Let's put the pictures in place and see what this wonderful contraption shows us. There we go. Now look through the eyepiece.
Thank you. I wasn't sure at first, but there's a clear discrepancy between these two prints.
What? You must identify the location in question for the court, counsel.
Gee, I wonder what it could be. Is it over here? Or maybe down here? I am not sure if maybe it is somewhere off to the side of the picture.
Take that!
Granted, these two prints are almost identical. However, there is one minor discrepancy between them.
Whoa!
When you view the two pictures stereoscopically, a single area stands out as being different. The location of this small box.
Let me... Wait. Unbelievable. By Jove, you're right. Extraordinary.
What this tells us is very simple. Mr. McGilded's small box was indeed not stolen from Windibanks on the night in question. However, there can be no doubt that somebody picked up this particular box and then returned it to its place on the shelves.
Are you suggesting that the small box originally deposited by Mr. McGilded is in fact?
Yes, the very same small box I just identified in those photographic prints.
Objection!
Mindless guesswork. What if it was? So a box was moved on the shelf. Nothing was stolen. Which means quite simply that nothing has changed.
That may be true, but... Alright, McGilded's box wasn't stolen then. But doesn't the fact that it was moved like that change things? Well, it has to change everything or we're screwed, so... I believe this changes everything about the case.
How can that possibly be?
The crucial point is the fact that what was moved was a small box. In other words, we have to consider what might have been inside that box.
What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that we need to examine that box as soon as possible. A vital piece of evidence is sitting on the shelves at Windibanks as we speak.
Objection!
That won't be necessary. Some little box belonging to a man who died 2 months ago can't possibly be relevant to this trial. The court does not uphold your objection, Lord Ben 6. Bailiff, arrange for an officer to go to Baker Street at once. Obtain the small box in question and bring it back here for further examination.
We should have a report within half an hour. I think perhaps we should recess for a short while until the evidence is brought forth.
To be hoodwinked by such a farce. Disappointing.
I beg your pardon, Wardman 6.
This is nothing but a smoke screen. A Nipponi specialty, it would seem.
What are you trying to say?
My learned friend has persisted with the same line of reasoning from the very beginning. That this witness's intent was to steal an article belonging to Mr. McGilded from the pawnbrokery. Yet common sense tells us that none of the articles have value enough to be worth stealing in the first place.
Exactly. It would be beyond absurd to break into a place for the purpose of stealing such commonplace property.
Hey, the wine is back. If your lordship recalls, Mr. McGilded perished 2 months ago, immediately after the conclusion of his trial. A trial in which he was found not guilty. A trial in which it was established he was the upstanding member of society's reputation implied, in fact. So I propose a toast to my learned friend and his most insightful defense.
The articles in this upstanding Members of Society pawn were entirely ordinary. A black overcoat that just happened to have a music box disc in one of its pockets, and a small box. I assure you I wouldn't accept even if the man tried to make a gift of such things to me.
You know, it just makes rather a sense.
It's not as if it was gold or jewels, was it? Is it? Though goodness knows Mr. McGilded was rich enough. But you can't deposit cash at a pawnbrokery, I'm quite certain of that.
The prosecution's argument is undeniably compelling. It is incumbent on the defense now to bolster its argument. To explain what possible significance these commonplace articles pawned by this fine citizen could have. Well, counsel, is your argument in fact demonstrable? Are you able to show proof that the disc or the box are in any tangible way related to this case?
Well, What's the matter, Runo? We know that they're related, don't we? They're both vital pieces of evidence.
Yes, of course. You and I both know that. We know McGilded's true character, and we know the disc is significant even if we don't know why. But if we explain all that to the court at this point, we'll have to acknowledge that McGilded's acquittal 2 months ago was a mistake. That the defense's argument was flawed, based on false information.
Oh no!
And that would mean admitting that Gina committed perjury. Well, perjury's better than murder.
But Ginny...
Could it be that Seeks knows? Is that why he's doing this now? Because he's anticipated everything?
But maybe... this could be a great opportunity for us.
Sorry? What do you mean, Iris?
Well, what is it that you always say, Runo? Sooner or later, the truth comes out. Every time.
All right. The exact significance of the things that Mr. McGilded deposited with Mr. Windybank is something that only Gina can explain to the court. But if I put her on the stand to testify about that, it could critically damage our chances of winning this case. What's the right thing to do here?
Have her testify, obviously.
My lord, the defense would like to make a proposal.
Oh, what proposal, counsel?
While the court awaits the arrival of Mr. McGilded's small box, I would like to call the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade, to the witness stand.
The defendant? To what end?
It's to do with the various articles deposited at Windybanks by Mr. McGilded, my lord. Miss Lestrade has information relating to them. I believe it would be beneficial for the court to hear what she has to say. It will prove the significance of the articles in question, once and for all.
Well. Things are becoming interesting. I presume you've considered the implications of the testimony you're proposing. In particular, the impact it will have on the accused's standing, and indeed your own.
I have. More than 6? Would you care to explain that last remark?
The prosecution accepts the defense's proposal. I move to interrupt this cross-examination of the current witness and hear from the accused herself.
Very well, if you have no objection. So, the court will now hear the testimony of the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade. You witnesses currently in the stand may step down until further notice. Then I shall bid you good day.
Right? You, sir, shall remain in the stand while Miss Lestrade testifies.
As you wish.
All right then, Gina. It's time. I know this will be hard, but please put your faith in me.
Good luck, Bruno.
The articles that Mr. McGilded had deposited in the Winterbank's pawnbrokery are intimately related with the omnibus case, the trial of which was heard in this courtroom 2 months ago.
Yes, and I remember this young lady being brought before me in that trial as well.
That's right, my lord. Her testimony helped establish the innocence of the defendant, Mr. McGilded.
The omnibus case was intriguing, to say the least. And now, here we all are again. The same players in that trial facing each other once more. A twist of fate, perhaps, my Nipponese friend.
Allow me to recap the events of 2 months ago. An old brickmaker was stabbed to death in an omnibus running along London's winter streets. Apart from the victim, there was only one other person in the carriage, Mr. McGilded. Naturally, he was the prime suspect for the murder. But as the trial progressed, another possibility emerged, that the murder in fact took place above the defendant's head on the roof deck, with the body then being dropped through the skylight into the carriage below. It was Miss Lestrade whose testimony brought that possibility to light. At the time of the incident, Miss Lestrade was concealed under a seat in the carriage, hoping to pick the pockets of unsuspecting passengers. Then, immediately after the trial, having been acquitted of the murder, Mr. McGilded died in this very courtroom, in the most extraordinary of circumstances.
A mystery that remains unsolved even now, 2 months on. As indeed does the omnibus murder itself.
Be that as it may, I recall neither the disc nor the small box being mentioned in the course of those proceedings.
Miss Lestrade, would you tell the court now, please, what really happened in the omnibus 2 months ago, I mean?
I don't know what you mean. I already said all of what I know.
And what about everything you told us yesterday from inside your prison cell? Please, Miss Lestrade, this is extremely important.
But...
Remember, little gal, if it transpires that you willfully withheld information in the trial 2 months ago, the Home Office will seek to prosecute you for perjury. And naturally, you will lose all credibility as a witness. Although, let's face facts, you have little credibility to lose.
Yeah, because she's poor. Again, that's another thing about the court system, is property owners, people who own businesses, especially people who have wealth, are generally considered more reliable and trustworthy witnesses than people who are lower class. And that's a thing that's just, like, true, and most people don't even question it, but that's a thing, which is another of the ways in which the justice system sort of systemically has a tendency to have prejudice against people simply for not having money.
Ginny, don't listen to him. Please, you have to trust Runo now.
Oris?
We're on your side.
All right, then. I'll talk. It's the right choice, Gina.
Well, it would seem that my learned friend is hell-bent on bringing the entire courtroom down about his ears. So be it. I must confess that I'm struggling to understand what on earth is happening here. However, it would appear that Mr. McGilded's pawned articles in that extraordinary case of the omnibus harbor secrets of which we've been hitherto unaware. So, Mr. Strad, you will now give your testimony before the court about the events of 2 months ago. You will reveal the truth, a commodity sorely lacking in your original statement. This is it then. Everything's gonna come out. Like Van Seek said, this could bring the whole courtroom down about my ears. But as a lawyer, I'm prepared to take that risk.
Truth is, that brickmaker coat was in the captain of the omnibus the whole time. When the Irishman dragged me out from under the seat, I saw that disc on the floor. All of a sudden, I heard a scream from over my head, and that pair on the roof deck went off to call the slops. That's when Mr. McGilded slipped the driver some tin to do a little run to the pawn shop round about. He threatened me not to snitch, not to say nothing to no one about what I'd seen or heard.
Good grief, this is outrageous. What you've just told the court bears almost no resemblance to your testimony 2 months ago. As you say, my lord. There's every chance I may have adjudicated an error in McGilded's trial. It sounds very much to me as if the man deliberately deceived this court in an effort to cover up the most wicked of schemes. Without doubt, your lordship is correct. A great injustice was done in this courtroom 2 months ago. The actions of the accused in that trial, of this witness, and of my learned friend are entirely inexcusable.
I don't believe it.
The whole trial was a farce. It was all lies.
That McGilded fellow was running to the court just like that pickpocket.
Don't forget that lawyer from the east. They were all in and on together.
You're wrong, you lot, are you? Mr. Natter, the lawyer, he didn't know nothing about it.
Humbug.
I don't think so. Are we really expected to believe that?
He really stitched everyone up, didn't he? It was an aberration to get the man off scot-free.
Unforgivable, stop. Lies have to stop.
Yes, the defense made a terrible error of judgment. I intend to take full responsibility and suffer whatever consequences are deemed appropriate. However, it's imperative that the court allows the witness to elaborate on her testimony, because the true significance of Mr. McGilded's pawned articles must be brought to light. Very well, my learned student friend. Given the depths of calamity you have just plunged yourself into, this may well be worth hearing. Let's fail me. The situation is utterly deplorable. Mr. Naruto. Yes, my lord. I will decide upon your fate following the conclusion of this trial. Of course, my lord.
Why me, Mr. Naruto?
Now, counsel, proceed with the cross-examination.
Hold it!
Press everything. And you were hiding in the cabin at the time as well, weren't you, Miss Lestrade? If I remember rightly, in the storage compartment underneath one of the seats?
Yeah, that's right. It's pitch black under there, so you can't see nothing at all.
Now, in your testimony 2 months ago, I feel certain that you claim Mr. McGilded was the sole passenger, did you not? False testimony, my lord.
That's what you told me I had to say.
But it's important that you tell us the truth now. Were McGilded and the victim acquaintances?
I don't know. I did hear him talking a lot.
What were they talking about?
Well, I couldn't hear too well, but if I had to say, I think it was about money or something. They kept talking about buying or not buying.
Perhaps business dealings of some kind.
Well, anyway, they got louder and louder. I started to sound like a proper fight. I was pretty scared by then. I hardly dared to breathe. And then, all of a sudden, I heard a noise like someone keeling over on the floor. It was blooming loud and all.
And I believe you let out an involuntary scream?
Yeah. That's what got me away. When the Irishman dragged me out from under the seat, I saw the disc on the floor.
Okay. Was the disc you saw this disc?
Yeah, I reckon it probably was. It was right next to the cove lying on the floor.
Hang on.
Excuse me.
What? Is there something you'd like to share with the court, Inspector Gregson and Mr. Graydon? Inspector! Mr. Graydon!
What? Blimey, you're trying to give me a heart attack.
You've been whispering to each other for quite some time now. Tell us, what is the discussion about?
Discussion? With this fella? Pull the other one, sunshine. You think I've got anything to talk about with shady jet like this?
And I have nothing to say to this uncouth detective after he deprived me of that disc that was rightfully mine.
Well, they've clearly been talking the entire time I've been cross-examining Gina. It's as if they've been negotiating.
You will kindly refrain from talking amongst yourselves while the witness is giving testimony.
Yes, sorry, my lord.
What were those two talking about?
Mr. Stroud, continue with your testimony, please.
Hold it!
Was the disc you saw this disc?
Yeah, I reckon it probably was. It was right next to the cove lying on the floor.
Would this disc have belonged to the victim, perhaps?
I know, but McGilded picked up pretty smartish. And then he sat the cove with a knife in his belly up on the seat.
What did he say to you at that time?
He told me not to say a word about what I'd seen or heard to no one. About the disc and all. I was dead scared. The way it was looking at me, I thought, if I didn't go along with it, I'd get stuck with that knife too. Then he started asking me a lot of questions. Like what my name was and where I lived and all that. He asked me about being a diver too.
But after a while, what had happened in the carriage was noticed?
Yeah, that's right. First there was a kind of rapping noise.
Hold it!
There were two gentlemen occupying the seats on the roof deck, I believe.
That's right. They must have looked down through the skylight and noticed the cove with a knife in his guts. When they screamed, the driver pulled up the horses and McGilded got me out of sight.
Out of sight? Where?
Back under the seat where I started off. Once the carriage come to an halt, the two coves from the roof ran off to fetch the slops.
If they immediately left to fetch the police, it would appear they were entirely unrelated to the incident. Huh. So that left McGilded, the driver, and you still at the scene.
Yeah, only the driver didn't know I was there because I was under the seat. I heard the cabin door open and a voice from outside.
The driver, yes, he also testified in the trial, I believe. A fellow who went by the name of Beppo, if memory serves.
What did McGilded and the driver say to each other?
I know what happened and stuff like that, mainly.
Hold it!
That pawn shop obviously being Windibank's on Baker Street.
Just a moment, counsel. Do you mean to tell me the driver gave false testimony in that trial as well?
Perhaps the excursion to the pawnbroker slipped his mind what he was in the stand.
Indeed, Lord and Six.
McGilded took off his coat and gave it to the driver. He folded it up, all careful like, before handing it over. When I saw him do that, I remember thinking, that coat is what's in it can't be worth a few bob.
Yes, Gina was sure the disc must be worth more than Mr. Windibank was suggesting, wasn't she? I remember her quibbling with him over the price that afternoon at the pawnbrokery.
The driver looked pretty happy when McGilded flashed some breast in his face. He went running off at a lick. Then the box trotter called to me and told me to come out from the drag skipping.
Hold it!
threaten you how exactly? Told me I'd only be able to escape if I did exactly what we said.
Which included giving false testimony in court 2 months ago.
Yeah, that's right. And there was one other thing he said.
Which was...
He told me I'd have to hang on to the ticket from the pawn shop and make sure not to lose it.
The ticket? Well, I never.
So if he didn't show up to get the ticket off me before 2 months passed, I had to go to the pawn shop and pay the money to keep this lucky, to stop me being forfeited. He left me with some brass to pay for that.
What, really? Why on earth must McGilded have done such a thing? Depositing his overcoat with a pawnbroker before the arrival of the police. It makes no sense at all.
There would seem to be only one logical explanation, my lord. What McGilded had the driver deposited Windibanks was something he didn't want the police to see. Something very important that he needed to hide at all costs. Anyway, after that, he let me go. So I left before the coppers showed up.
Thank you, Mr. Strahd. Thank you, Counsel. I've heard enough. I believe we now have a reasonable understanding of what actually transpired on the omnibus. It would appear on that night 2 months ago, a negotiation was taking place on the omnibus. A negotiation concerning this disc. However, matters did not run smoothly. When the parties involved began to quarrel over price, McGilded took what he wanted by force, at the expense of the other man's life.
Which proves my point. The disc is clearly extremely valuable in some way. Although I don't understand why as yet.
And 2 days ago, precisely 2 months after the omnibus incident, McGilded's coat and its contents were due to be forfeited.
I didn't know what I should do with the ticket. I mean, the cove did die right after his trial. I knew that.
So you decided you would try to claim the articles as your own.
Well, why not, eh? We're only going to be forfeited. Why shouldn't I have got them? Anyway, you can't blame me for thinking about it. Thinking that you're on crime.
Mr. Strahd, it would appear Mr. McGilded was prepared to kill in order to take possession of this disc. Do you know why that would be?
Eh? I ain't got a clue. But I reckon it must be worth a fair bit of brass. He was probably going to sell it. And you can't blame me for thinking that. Thinking it ain't no crime.
My lord! The evidence your lordship requested has been located and is ready for court inspection, sir.
The mysterious little box deposited by McGilded 2 months ago. There's no doubt in my mind that it's a key piece in this far-reaching puzzle.
Oh, hey! There's the to be continued.
Ding!
Okay, I guess there's 4 parts to this trial. And if you want to see me take them on, you have to hit the like, comment, and or subscribe buttons down below, because that'll let you know when new episodes are coming out. If you want to watch these episodes early, or indeed anything on this channel early before it comes out for other people, you can become a member of the channel, which it'll give you early access. That's pretty much it. Also gets you into my Discord, in case you're curious. But yeah, I also have a Patreon, a merchandise store, and a tip jar. You can use them if you want to, but you absolutely do not have to. Thank you very much for watching. Remember to wear a mask and wash your hands. Try to make the world better for other people, you know? And have solidarity with those who are worse off than yourself.